Hello everybody, welcome to the channel. In today's video, I'm going to be ranking and reviewing every single Star Wars movie, including the brand new release, The Mandalorian and Grogu. This is a video that I've been meaning to make for months now. I've been preparing by watching literally nothing but Star Wars movies for the past 2 weeks, including the brand new release again. Now, as you guys can tell from the title, this isn't just a ranking. We're also going to be reviewing each film, and what I mean by that is, I don't want to just throw each film on a tier list. I want to talk about each of them for a couple minutes because I feel like Star Wars is the type of franchise that deserves that respect, and I just want to talk about these films, especially because I put so many hours into watching all of them. So I want to give my insight. And one other thing I kind of need to mention here is the fact that the reason I want to give my insight is because I might have to do a little bit of defending, because to be just straight up with you guys, I feel like I have a pretty weird Star Wars ranking. It kind of goes against the grain, not on purpose. I'm not just like trying to be different or like get clickbait or rage bait. I just am not like the most dedicated Star Wars fan. So quite honestly, as someone that didn't really grow up with it, I've watched a lot of these movies for the first time over the past like couple of years. I feel like I just have a different perspective on these films, and I don't know, I have certain things that I like, certain things that a lot of people seem to like that I don't really like, and that's what we're going to get into here today. So feel free to yell at me down below, but also be sure to drop a like on this video if you like it, and also subscribe. It would mean the world to me, especially if you guys want to keep talking about movie shows and everything in between, and especially nerdy stuff like this, because man, we're talking about Star Wars. But I say we just look over at the tier list that I got up here. So listen, we're keeping things simple. We've got 12 films on here, and I do want to just give some context before, which we'll go over in a second, just, establish some rules, because again, I want to talk about these films for a little bit, so this is going to be a bit of a longer video. Get some snacks, get water, whatever you want to do. But I broke this up into 4 categories that I feel perfectly represents how I feel about these films. The thing is, I kind of realized that nothing really deserves to go, in my opinion, in like a fine category. So we've got the top 3. These are just going to be my top 3 Star Wars films, what I believe to be basically the upper echelon of this franchise. Good. These are the good Star Wars movies that I could watch at any point. Now again, I'm going to be ranking these, so there's going to be definitive order, but I definitely lean positive on all these movies. Then we kind of jump down to pretty bad. These are the films that I don't think are just like so offensively atrocious, but at the same time, they don't really do a lot for me, but there's still like hints of greatness, and they're still pretty watchable. And then we've got It's Over. These are movies that I just genuinely think are just god-awful, basically unwatchable, and I do not want to watch them ever again, and they're just hilariously offensive to this franchise, to the fans, whatever you want to say. Just bad movies. Now, one thing I will say, okay, let's establish some rules here. The first one that I want to make clear is that I did not include the Clone Wars movie from 2008. I have not seen the show. It's animated, and I feel like comparing animated to live action, especially because I feel like mostly people just care about the live action movies, so I'm just going to be honest, it just doesn't really matter all that much. And the third thing, like I just said, nobody really cares about the Clone Wars movie. I feel like a lot of people say it's bad, and again, I just want to kind of stay out of that. I want to just keep things live action, the movies that people go to and know, even the bad ones. But a second thing, and I want to just say this one more time, I am not a die-hard Star Wars fan, okay? I don't claim to know all the lore. I haven't even seen all like the Disney Plus shows. I've seen some of them, not all of them. I've watched all the movies. I love Star Wars conceptually. I love the world. I loved, like, for example, the Skywalker Saga Lego game, running around in the world for hours and hours and seeing all the different planets and characters. Like, I loved that. Going through the movies, like, that was so fun for me. But I feel like when it comes to the projects, generally, I am a bit lower on this franchise than most people. Like, my average is probably just lower for this franchise. So again, I'm not going to really sit here and like act like I'm going to defend all these takes and like, no, my opinion is like, the definitive opinion. Like, no way. The MCU, that's a franchise that, since I know more about it and that I love a lot more, I could definitely like, defend my opinions. Same with like Harry Potter. But this franchise, again, I'm not like the biggest Star Wars fan, but I do care about the franchise. And when Star Wars is hitting, man, when that Star Wars charm and there's like the music, man, I love this franchise. But also, there are some times when over the past 2 weeks I was watching these movies like, oh my god, these are the worst films I've ever seen in my life. So I say we just kind of kick things off here. There's no other reason to wait. And one more thing, please be sure to subscribe. Sorry, I just wanted to say it one more time. But let's get into it here. And again, we're going to take this a bit slow because I really want to talk about each of these movies. We're going to be starting off with A New Hope. We're going in release order, by the way. Again, all 12 films minus the Clone Wars movie because I just haven't seen it. And animated, whatever, you guys get the gist. A New Hope. I am going to put this, I'm like afraid, my hand's like shaking over the mouse over here. I'm going to put this in good. I think that this is a really good movie. It's just not personally like a top 3 Star Wars movie for me. I don't think I've ever really connected with this film, but let's talk about it. I need to get something off of my chest immediately that is going to make a lot of you click off this video instantly, quite honestly, or dislike or whatever, but I hope you guys could just respect my opinion. I'm really not a big Luke Skywalker guy. I think that he's pretty okay, like in terms of just being a hero. I look at other franchises like Iron Man and Harry Potter and Spider-Man and Superman and Batman. They're just so much more intriguing to me. And I feel like at times Luke Skywalker can be a bit whiny. And I think the worst example of that is in this film. Now listen, I don't want to just instantly start dogging on like one of the most iconic heroes of all time that 2 seconds into this video. I'm just giving you guys my 2 cents. I like Luke Skywalker though. He's pretty chill to me. I just never really personally connected to him. And one thing I will say as we kind of go into the original trilogy here, I think that I'm not the biggest fan of the original trilogy. And oh my god, people are probably lighting their houses on fire. They're trying to find my address. But in all seriousness, it's one of these things where I think that since I didn't grow up with them, they never really like clicked with me or connected with me. And I never really was able to connect to the characters as much as I'd like to. Like, I am not a huge Luke Skywalker, Princess Leia, Han Solo guy. And I know that sounds crazy. You're probably like, oh my god, whatever. But in all seriousness, I'm just giving you guys my honest thoughts. But I do like these characters, okay? I laugh with them. I like their heroic moments. I'm just saying I'm not the biggest fans of these characters. But listen, let's get into things here. First of all, the introduction. I mean, you got this opening scene, iconic, of course, with Darth Vader trying to find these plans. Princess Leia giving them to the droids. They go off to Tatooine. The way this movie starts off is just so great. And I feel like one thing that I do like about this movie is that it really starts off with a bang. And I will say, I feel like the second act is kind of where things start to wander a bit for me personally. And I know that I'm talking about like one of the greatest movies of all time essentially here, but again, just kind of voicing my own opinions. That's the last time I'm going to say it. I'm just going to speak with my chest now from now on. But I think that the third act, by the time we get there, sometimes I feel like I'm kind of zoning out a little bit, but still really enjoy the way that like Luke is able to like use the Force to destroy the Death Star. The technology for the time is very impressive, but I feel like, you know, it is kind of tough to wow me a little bit when like it does look quote-unquote outdated, and that's just like a personal preference thing. Like, I love just like when CGI is really impressive and practical effects. But speaking of practical effects, some of the costuming here is absolutely awesome. C-3PO, Chewbacca, even R2-D2, the fact that he's really there. These sets are beautiful. How could I not talk about Darth Vader? I mean, this isn't even the best film, like, for Darth Vader to me. I think like probably Empire is, but he is so great. His presence the second that he enters any scene is just like, whoa. Every line that he says is memorable. James Earl Jones' iconic voice. It's unbelievable from a production perspective. Again, I like the banter between the characters. And how could I not talk about the music? Because the thing is, yes, we could talk about the music all day and all that, like Star Wars charm, but this is the film that set the foundation. They set the precedent of what Star Wars is going to be for the next 50 years. So you've got to give it a lot of credit there. Again, A New Hope, it's not my favorite in the world. I just think that, to me, like, pacing-wise, it's just a bit on the slower end. And I know, like, that's something that people are going to want to, like, you know, go crazy over. But again, just my own opinion. I'm not going to, like, even defend it. Like, I think that this is, like, a phenomenal movie. Just not really completely for me. But this is a good movie. Like, I really like this movie. I think it's really enjoyable, but again, I think that, like, over the course of the film, like, for me, it kind of starts to just, like, slowly dwindle a bit, but I like the conversation with Obi-Wan. I like when my favorite, maybe one of my favorite parts of Star Wars is when Luke is looking at the twin suns, the music's playing, the score, oh my god, it's so good, kind of looking at the two paths he could go down, like, unbelievable stuff, really, really fun movie, and then the whole, like, Death Star sequence, like the trash compactor, really enjoy that, especially, again, like, with these sets, it's just so unbelievable. But again, this movie has just never, like, really moved me, and I think a big part of that is because I didn't grow up with it. Now, moving on to The Empire Strikes Back. I think The Empire Strikes Back is better than A New Hope, and this is where people are going to start to kind of hate on me a little bit. It's actually not in my top 3 still. I know, whoa, what do you mean A New Hope and Empire Strikes Back aren't in your top 3? You guys will see what my top 3 is. But Empire Strikes Back to me is even better somehow than A New Hope, because A New Hope is a really good movie. Empire, I feel like, just builds on it. I think that the opening Hoth scene is really interesting, intriguing. The technology at the time, again, like the production value, the way they're able to make you feel like you're on this snow planet is crazy, especially at a time where like there wasn't all this advanced CGI and stuff. Han, I feel like, is a bit better in here for me. And one thing I want to point out about this film is that the final 45 minutes of this movie, once they get to Cloud City, are literally just like perfect to me. Like, there is not one thing wrong with the movie in those final 45 minutes. And I know that a lot of people are going to say, well, the whole movie's perfect. Okay. I do have a couple gripes personally. I really like the fact that Luke kind of just gets this vision, essentially. He sees the Force Ghost, and it's like, hey, go to the Dagobah system. You need to go train. Goes there, meets Yoda. I like when Yoda starts like attacking R2-D2. That's so funny. Goes there, starts to get some wisdom. He starts to train. It's kind of like he's getting ready. But the problem is that in the second act, our characters are split up, okay? I really like what's going on with Luke. Every time that we cut to Han and Leia and the Millennium Falcon just kind of being chased through space, it kind of drags a bit for me personally. Just a me thing, okay? Again, don't come after me. But I feel like every time that we cut to them, I'm kind of just like waiting until we get to the third act at that point, or just waiting until we go back to Luke on Dagobah, because it's really interesting what's going on there. And I like the fact that, of course, they lose in this movie. It's almost like Luke kind of rushes into battle when he's still not fully trained. And it's one of these things where it's just this shocking ending, almost like, Infinity War or something, where like the villain kind of wins in a way. Like, obviously not completely, but it's really interesting. Lando is one of my favorite Star Wars characters. I'll also say that. So he's introduced in here, and I just think he's absolutely great. Yeah, The Empire Strikes Back, right? The score is incredible. The visuals are great. Iconic moment after iconic moment after iconic moment. I Am Your Father, probably the most iconic moment, like, practically ever. But yeah, really great movie. The visuals, again, I feel like even took a step up. Really great stuff. Return of the Jedi. This is the one film, oh god, man, like, I'm really starting to get in trouble here with you guys. But again, you know what? I have to stop complaining. I'm being a baby. I'm going to be honest, I'm being a baby. I just have to kind of go full force here against the might of the internet and just state my opinions and stop kind of whining about how, oh no, I hope that nobody attacks me. You know what? These are my opinions at the end of the day. Return of the Jedi is going in the back of good. Now I know, oh my god, none of the original trilogy are in your top 3. Sorry, guys. I really don't know what to tell you. Return of the Jedi, I think, is a movie where things start to go a bit off the track for me. I used to love this movie, like really love it, and then I just watched it the other day, and I was like, ugh, I don't really know if it's all that good. The first act to me, when they're going to Jabba's hut, or not Jabba's hut, I'm thinking of Jabba the Hutt, but Jabba's like palace there, I'm really not a fan of that first act. I feel like it's kind of like structured in an odd way where like C-3PO goes in and then like they kind of get turned down. Then there's some time that passes. Then Leia comes in and then like Luke comes in, and it's like, it's just kind of weird to me. George Lucas also destroyed this movie because in 2004, when he decided to like kind of, add his little touches, he added in that awful little singing bit with that weird alien. And it honestly kind of like pisses me off because I'm like, what were you even thinking? From there, the second act is kind of okay to me. And then the third act, I really enjoy. I actually kind of like the Ewoks. Like, I think they're okay, but I think it just kind of loses steam a bit. But that third act, man, once we get towards the very end where, Luke's getting electrocuted by the Emperor, Darth Vader's kind of just staring at him. He's like, whoa, I'm actually not a bad guy. I've still got that greatness in me. Grabs him, throws him over the ledge. Like, I love heroic moments like that and sacrifices like that. So that's like a really beautiful moment in my opinion. But one thing I will also say, maybe I'm crazy for this, I don't like the fact that in the first film of this trilogy, we destroy the Death Star. The second film of this trilogy, we have kind of like a separate adventure. And then in the third film of this trilogy, it's like, we're gonna destroy the Death Star again. Okay, I guess we're just doing the same thing as the first movie. Like, I know that might sound a little bit silly, because you could say like, oh, what about like Pirates of the Caribbean? In the first movie, there's pirate ship battles, and then in the third movie there's pirate ship battles, but there's different things going on, but it's like, we have to destroy the Death Star again. It's like, okay, that's pretty cool, I guess, but not a movie that really, like, flows completely for me, and one that, like, I could really say I'm, like, super entertained throughout, if I'm just gonna be completely honest with you. And again, I think that's also because I just have never really been able to, like, fully connect with these characters. Okay, guys, we're heading into the prequels. These are some films that some people love, some people hate, so we're already in controversial waters. Let's just keep diving in. The Phantom Menace. When I think of the term boring movie, my mind immediately goes to Phantom Menace. That's the poster child in my mind of boring films. With that being said, it's going to be going in pretty bad. I think this is not just like a below average film, but a pretty bad film. But with that being said, it's not bad enough because there's still a lot of good stuff in there to go down to it's over. So let's talk about this film as a whole. First of all, this film's boring, straight up. Like I just said, all of the politics involving the Republic and the Trade Confederation literally is just like watching paint dry. Now, one thing I will say, not to spoil the future, I just want to keep things kind of light here, is that I think the politics of Star Wars get so much more interesting and make a lot more sense in Attack of the Clones and Revenge of the Sith. But I feel like the politics in Episode 1 are just literally like sitting at work or like sitting in a classroom and you're just being spoon-fed literally the most boring stuff between Newt Gunray and the Senate and the this and that. Like, it feels so inconsequential in the grand scheme of the prequel trilogy because I feel like Attack of the Clones and Revenge of the Sith, those political conflicts are like connected, but it feels like everything that was set up in the first film is kind of just like yeah, it's important for the second and the third, but like it's not that important. And it's just so boring. The pacing of this film, I just do not find to be quick whatsoever. I think that Anakin, as a kid, is a bit of an annoying character. I know this is kind of like a controversial thing because Jake Lloyd got a lot of hate, and I'm not hating on him. I think he gives a pretty good performance, but they did not give him the material because he's pretty annoying to me. And on top of that, you've got Jar Jar Binks in this movie. I feel like there's been some like revisionist history about how like, no, Jar Jar Binks isn't actually that annoying. He's kind of like misunderstood. Guys, Jar Jar Binks is one of the most annoying characters in cinema history. Genuinely. So frustrating. Every time we're having some type of mildly interesting conversation, Jar Jar says something, ruins the flow of it. Very annoying. Then, when we've got Jar Jar and Kid Anakin in the same scene, it's pretty slow and frustrating, and I'm like, can we please just move on? From there, speaking of Anakin as a kid, I think the pod racing scene is severely overrated. Like, it's cool. It's like I'm watching it and I'm like, yeah, this is pretty cool. But some people act like it saves this movie and makes it like really good. When I look at this film, the only good scenes that I could really think of off the top of my head is obviously at the end, which we're going to talk about in a second, and like the intro, because it's kind of interesting, like the Jedi, right? They go on the ship, Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan. They're kind of slicing some dudes up. They're doing their little speed run that we never get to see ever again. Pretty cool there. Let's just jump to the end, though, because I feel like it's pretty fair to start to get into this. Obviously, Darth Maul, very iconic character. It's kind of funny to me because Darth Maul is one of these characters where, like, he's really not even in, like, the one movie that he is in. But boy, does he pack a punch because Duelist Fate starts playing. And one thing I will say, because I just want to say this one time before we even move forward, every single Star Wars film has such great music. Like, everyone, even the horrible films, have like basically 9 or 10 out of 10 music. That's how good it is. But speaking of like production stuff, like, sets and music, whatever, the CGI in this movie also is really not that good, like pretty much at all. I feel like there was a big jump once we got to Attack of the Clones, whether it's like, I don't know, something's just got more advanced or whatever, the effort they put in, whatever you want to say. But this movie to me, it's very boring. Qui-Gon is a mildly interesting character to me. I really like Liam Neeson. Obi-Wan is mildly interesting in this movie. I think he's way more interesting in the next two entries. I don't know what happened or what changed, but he's fine. He's not given a lot to do. On Tatooine, he's kind of just like sitting in the ship for the most part. I think the most interesting character is probably Padme in this film at least, but outside of like Darth Maul, again, just because like he kind of aura farms and he just looks kind of cool. But yeah, the final fight is the one thing that saves this movie. And I will say, after watching this again, because this is a film that I've had a pretty bumpy like road with. Like, I've liked it, I've not liked it, I've liked it, I've not liked it. I think that I've just settled on, man, I just do not want to watch this movie like for a very long time. Again, it's a sludge just to sit through. It's like too silly at times, but then other times it's trying to be too serious because you'll have some stupid Jar Jar moment. Then you'll have some very boring political conversation. Nothing wrong with having political conversations in movies or like Star Wars because it's Star Wars. Wars are inherently political. But this film just drags it out. It's just not interesting. I'm sorry. I say we just move on to one of my hotter takes, as if we haven't already had pretty hot takes. Attack of the Clones. I really like Attack of the Clones. Now, is it great? No. But Attack of the Clones is good. I think it's even better than Return of the Jedi. And I'll even go as far as to say that it's better than A New Hope. But it's not as good as Empire Strikes Back. I know, come after me, whatever. You know, light your pitchforks. Attack of the Clones is where the prequels took a significant step up for me. I feel like now you instantly remove Jar Jar Binks basically from this movie. He's in like one little scene, okay. And then we replace kid Anakin with adult Anakin, Hayden Christensen. Right off the bat, major upgrade. I feel like there's so many more interesting plot lines going on in this film. When I break it down, I've got kind of the turmoil, you could say, with Anakin, where he's like, man, I really want to be with this girl, Padme. He has like this inner turmoil. He's like, God, I love her, but can I be with her or whatever? I don't mind their romantic scenes. Across the Stars, the song you get in this. I'm sorry, I like Padme and Anakin's relationship. I know that a lot of people complain that like they're off on like the love planet at Naboo. I like that. Then, parallel to that, you've got Detective Obi-Wan. This is where the politics really start to ramp up for me, and I think they get so much more interesting because now we're diving into this secret clone army that's being built, and, you know, some things were being deleted from the Jedi archives, and someone's really starting to pull the strings behind the scenes. That's where I feel like also the Emperor, you know, Palpatine, starts to kind of become more of an interesting character. And Ian McDiarmid, of course, in the role, like, he's so great. But I just think, again, this is kind of where everything started to click for me. You've got the Jedi Council. You start to see Anakin start to become frustrated. I really am a big fan of the scene where there's the assassination on Padme's life. Not the first one, but the second one, like in her room with those little bug creatures. We get to see Coruscant at night, and there's like this high-speed chase. We're going to like a bar. I think it's really cool. Count Dooku's introduced. That final fight on, is it Geonosis, I believe, right? With the Geonosians or whatever. I love that final battle. How can I not talk about also Kamino? Kamino is such an awesome planet. Jango Fett, I like a lot better than Boba Fett. I don't know if that's like some hot take, but I feel like Boba Fett really doesn't even do that much in the original trilogy. But Jango, the way that he goes out, Mace slices his head off. We get some cool creatures. I feel like things, again, just kind of ramp up. And this movie's just fun. Like, again, it's pretty silly in terms of like its dialogue, and it's very campy because that's kind of just like, I feel like how George made these prequels. It's just like a very campy trilogy, and it's like a very, you know, like product of its time type of film. But I really enjoy Attack of the Clones. Now, it is not perfect. It is very flawed. A lot of the dialogue's pretty much off. I feel like at times, like, we're kind of just bouncing around between some silly things, like the Anakin's mother plotline. Like, I understand that that's like something that angers him and really frustrates him, but Anakin was away from his mom for like years. Didn't really care all that much, it seems like. All of a sudden, he gets this like feeling where he's like, uh-oh, you know, my mom's in danger. Goes to hunt her down, and then he's mad. Like, it's just kind of like this side quest in the middle of the film that I don't really like. One other thing I forgot to mention about Phantom Menace that I really hate, by the way, speaking of feelings, is the midichlorian count. I think midichlorians being introduced into Star Wars, and this is just an opinion from a casual fan, I guess you could say, is such a dumb concept. Like, I like the idea that the Force is just this thing that's out in the air. There's this balance where, you know, sometimes things need to even out. If something really bad happens, something good kind of happens, and it evens out. Second, they introduce a midichlorian count in someone's blood, and the cells are... I feel like that's so over the top, and that is George Lucas, like, absolutely getting in his own head. Sorry to backtrack, but now we'll move on to Revenge of the Sith. And listen, I'm just going to cut to the chase here. Revenge of the Sith is in the top 3 Star Wars films for me. It's probably my second favorite Star Wars film, not to spoil and kind of jump ahead, but I've always had this opinion or this thought in my head that the prequels don't just get better, but in a weird way, it's almost like the first 2 films in the prequel trilogy almost sacrifice their quality just so that Revenge of the Sith could be absolutely incredible. I love Revenge of the Sith. It's like a 4.5 out of 5 for me. There is something so campy and Shakespearean about this film. It is so out of this world, no pun intended, because like we're in Star Wars, but seriously, like the dialogue is so exaggerated. Everything about this movie to me feels like a theater play or something like that, where again, it feels very theatrical and over the top. And if you don't like that, I get it, but this movie is also one of the most entertaining Star Wars films. It picks up with a little space adventure, and then we just do not stop from there. Entertaining sequence after entertaining sequence after entertaining sequence. Anakin, his turn to the dark side, right? Order 66. I love the General Grievous battle with Kenobi. This is another thing, too, where I feel like, again, the visuals take yet another step up. Are they perfect by any means? No, but if you look back to the Phantom Menace, something changed, man. I feel like just in general, like all the CGI just got upgraded, and I feel like that honestly just does a lot for me and like my immersion. I'm just going to kind of rip it off, okay? I'm going to rip the Band-Aid off here. We've got, of course, this conflict between Kenobi and Anakin, which leads to the Mustafar battle with Duel of the Fates. Legitimately, just some of the greatest space opera epic stuff that you will ever see. The reason the fight is so good is not just because of the choreography. Yes, I love the dramatic part of the fight where they're both spinning their lightsabers, not even trying to hit each other. I see that's something that people complain about. They're like, okay, if they're fighting, why do they just start spinning their lightsabers? You want to know why? Because that's cool. Like, I'm sorry, that's just really cool. They're kicking each other. There's like some real hatred. The reason the fight's so good is because of the emotion behind it. This Padawan and his master going at it. All of a sudden, the Padawan's super powerful. He's turned to the dark side. It's so tragic. God, the scene between the 3 of them on that little platform when, she's like, Anakin, who are you? What, like, God, man, only a Sith deals in absolutes. I love the camera cut to where Padme and Anakin are talking. It cuts to Obi-Wan Kenobi in the ship, and he's just standing there like this with his chest puffed out. It's so hilarious. This movie, again, it's so dramatic. It's like you could almost laugh at the whole movie, but it's also so tragically beautiful at the same time. It's just like one-of-one type of film where this movie kind of reminds me of like Spider-Man 3 in a way where they're both very campy, but I love both of them because I think that they're also like genuinely good in this weird way. Again, this movie's just so great. Anakin's probably my favorite Star Wars character, honestly. Like, yes, that leads into Darth Vader, but, I guess you could say they're like kind of different characters, at least just like, kind of, you know what I'm saying though. But yeah, I just really love this. And again, I also think Obi-Wan takes another step up in here. The political stuff gets turned to another degree. Mace Windu's death is insane. The fact that he kind of finds out, he's like, yo, I need you to kind of spy on Palpatine when he's talking to Anakin, and Anakin's like, whoa, I don't know if I could do that. Where we really start to see the push and pull between Anakin and like his insides basically, and he's like, do I go with the Jedi Council? Are they trying to take over, or can I trust my boy Palpatine? Like, this is a pretty crazy movie to me, and I love it. Like, I'm sorry, unapologetically. And like, it's funny because like, again, maybe this trilogy isn't all that great, but I could appreciate that at least it gets better with each film, in my opinion. And also, the third film is just so good that, like, the only reason I even want to watch The Phantom Menace now is because maybe I want to just get through it so that I can just watch this trilogy in order because it keeps getting better and better. I just absolutely love this movie, and I say we just move on to the next one. All right, guys, we're kicking off with the sequel trilogy here. I'm a bit nervous to talk about this trilogy and even just Disney Star Wars as a whole because it's very controversial, as you know, as if the prequels weren't controversial, Now we're getting into even more controversial territory. With The Force Awakens, one thing I just want to make very clear, The Force Awakens showed so much promise, man. It showed so much potential for Disney Star Wars to just be Star Wars. I think that Disney Star Wars as a phrase wouldn't even exist if we just kept putting out good movies. It would have just been like, yeah, Disney owns Star Wars now, but we're still just putting out some good films. But things have kind of gone downhill from this film for the most part. But let me just say one thing. The Force Awakens is the top 3 Star Wars film for me. Not as good as Revenge of the Sith. It's going to be going right there. The Force Awakens is literally the most fun Star Wars has ever been to me. I want to make something very clear. The first act of Force Awakens literally has the most energy I think I have ever seen a film have practically. Like, okay, maybe if we're comparing to something like Into the Spider-Verse where like it's animated so there's a lot going on, the energy is on a 10 out of 10 level. There's bantering, there's jokes, there's incredible visuals. This film kicks off with an absolute bang. Between what we see with Poe, what we see with Rey, the way that Finn, gets kind of tied up into all this, Kylo Ren's entrance, the first act of this movie is going at 100 miles per hour. And in my opinion, it almost has the best Star Wars feel out of any act of this entire franchise. Now, I know, maybe I'm not qualified to say that because I'm not a diehard fan, but in all seriousness, the first act of this movie is like perfect to me. It's literally like 10 out of 10 perfect. Now, I do think that it loses a bit of steam as we get towards the end, and maybe that's just because we're kind of redoing A New Hope, which I know has been a major complaint, but if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And also, it's been so many years that it's like, okay, I understand that. And I know that you're going to say, oh, but you said that, Return of the Jedi did the same thing. Why are you complaining? Because that was like 6 years later or like 5 years later. It's been a while now, and also we have like the First Order. This is a completely new threat. One thing I do want to say about The Force Awakens, and this is something that honestly just does a lot for me. Like, I really care about great writing and good characters, but the visual upgrade from Revenge of the Sith to The Force Awakens 10 years later, the CGI in this movie is flawless. The production value between the visuals, like the cinematography, even just like the music, the costumes, the sets, everything in here is incredible. It's shot so creatively, and yeah, like, I'm sorry, but like, yes, the advanced visuals do a lot for me. When I'm watching battles in space and I'm watching like stuff that looks real, it just does a lot for me compared to like the original trilogy. And I'm not saying the original trilogy like sucks or anything. I'm just saying, just me personally. But this movie, it's so fun throughout. I love Poe in this movie. I love Finn in this movie. I love Rey more than anything practically in this movie. The rest of the trilogy we're going to talk about in a minute. But listen, there was so much promise here. I even love Han Solo in here. Like, it's funny because, like I mentioned, I wasn't always like the biggest Han Solo fan just because maybe I didn't grow up with him. I didn't really like his like, he kind of just always acts like a dick a little bit to me, but I kind of like him in here just because like I feel like I was able to understand him a bit more, especially like when I got to see like his softer side with like his son. I just think this movie's incredible, man. The dynamics too, like I love the characters, but Poe and Finn together, oh my god, like it's just so great. What happened from there, I guess we'll never know, but this is just truly like a promising movie that was full of so much potential. Like I feel like it was going to explode that it had so much potential. But I feel like things kind of only went downhill from there. Now, I don't think it's like a super hot take in here. Also, Kylo Ren, really awesome villain. I feel like, he kind of starts to stagger a little bit, but we'll talk about that in a little bit. But in this movie especially, I think he's great. Even Snoke, sorry guys, he was really cool in The Force Awakens. Keep in mind that we're just talking about The Force Awakens. I really enjoyed this movie. Even Leia, we get to see like Yavin or like the Rebel base, like going across a bunch of different planets. And I like the fact that like Finn keeps complaining that they're going to Jakku. Is it Jakku? I keep forgetting the name of the title, the planet, the title of the planet. But Finn like goes to the planet, then he leaves, then he goes back to the planet, and then he leaves again, I'm pretty sure. Then he's like, you guys really want to go back to Jakku? Like, there's so many funny jokes in this movie. This might be the most funny Star Wars movie to me personally. Next up, we're going to be talking about Rogue One. Now, I know, this Disney Star Wars era was a bit of a bumpy road, and I feel like, Rogue One, this is where they kind of started to, like, expand for the first time, like, outside of the original, or the trilogies, you could say, essentially. They did, like, kind of like a spin-off, and, outside of, like, shows like the animated Clone Wars show, just, like, true blockbuster films with Rogue One. Now, Rogue One is my favorite Star Wars movie. One day, everybody will see my vision. One day, everyone will see my vision. Now, I need to say one thing that maybe will blow some of your minds. I have not even seen Andor, okay? I know, people are like probably thinking I'm insane between my ranking and between some of the stuff I'm saying. I have not seen Andor. I don't know. I just haven't seen it yet. I will get around to seeing it at some point. But even without seeing Andor, this is still my favorite movie in the Star Wars franchise. Something about Gareth Edwards' directorial style, even though I think he's pretty much made kind of rough movies outside of this, with that Tony Gilroy script and that good writing, is a match made in heaven. The visuals have literally never looked better to me in Star Wars than in this movie. The way this film flows, all everybody ever talks about is how, oh, well, the last hour of this movie is really good, but the beginning's boring. No, it's not. There is this sense of palpable tension and dread and desperation throughout this entire film that only ramps up as things go on. And what I think is so beautiful is that as Jyn Erso starts to kind of care more about this fight, about this rebellion, you kind of feel that desperation ramp up because she's like, I really will do anything to stop the Empire. And again, that final hour, like I feel like a lot of people underestimate it. I think my favorite hour of Star Wars is that final hour of Rogue One. I think it is so incredibly powerful, and it's funny because it's one of these things where even though I know that the Rebels get the Death Star plans, it's so tense that part of me is like, are they going to get it though? Even though I know that they get it. Even though I've seen this movie before, every time I watch it, I'm like, I don't know. Maybe this time they won't get it though, because it's so tense. Even to the point where they killed all the characters. Like, that's such a great, bold, creative risk that I think paid off, and that makes sense because they're essentially dying for a sunset they will never see. They are just so tied up. They don't care about their own lives. They care about the rebellion. They care about hope. Rebellions are built on hope. That's like one of my favorite sentences in all of Star Wars. One of my favorite quotes. I love this film. Jyn Erso is a great protagonist. Cassian Andor is awesome. K2SO is great as well. You got like Riz Ahmed in here. You've got like the Jedi. I'm one with the Force is with me. That almost makes me want to tear up. And one thing I will say too, that I have not mentioned, this is a film that's more smuggler, outlaw oriented, right? Not too much lightsaber stuff except for the 10 out of 10 Darth Vader thing that we get at the end. And also that really great Darth Vader scene in the middle with Krennic. But it's one of these things where the Force is kind of like weaved into this film in a really beautiful way, where it's more of like this power that's in the air rather than something that people are like, using and choking people with. It's more of something to believe in and like almost like a religious thing. And I just thought that was really beautiful. Ben Mendelsohn is Krennic, incredible villain. I love him in here. He's giving it all. One thing I will say too, like the acting in this movie is really good. Like you feel, again, that desperation. And even though it's just a movie, sometimes I'm sitting there and I'm just like, this is so goddamn tense. Like, it feels like uncut gems at times. Again, I don't need to keep repeating this, but the CGI, impeccable. The costumes are great. The color grading of this movie, like, I love the way that Scarif looks, where the palm trees are green. You've got the blue ocean. The sand on the beach is, like, super, beige or what. Like, this film is so good. I love the planets we visit. Her connection with her dad and like how he was kind of the one to like put the little flaw in the Death Star. This movie is incredible to me. And I think that it almost does like fan service, right? Like how we see like Princess Leia at the end and we get like this really cool Darth Vader moment and we see Darth Vader because it fits into the story. But this is just my favorite Star Wars film. I don't think that it has like it feels the most Star Wars out of other Star Wars films. But to me, it's just my favorite film in the whole franchise. Like, I'm sorry, it's just a personal thing. But I say that we move on to The Last Jedi. Probably the most controversial Star Wars movie, because even though people say Rise of Skywalker is like the worst or whatever, I think The Rise of Skywalker, or The Last Jedi, is the one that really divides people. I want to make something very clear. No movie pisses me off more in this entire franchise than The Last Jedi. This movie is so bad. Like, you want to talk about an absolute nosedive? Now listen, this is the thing. There's some people that do rate this movie highly. And I'm going to be honest with you, and I'm not like attacking anybody, right? I literally cannot comprehend how. Like, this is one of these films where there are literally so many plot holes and lore-breaking moments that it's hard for me to understand how somebody could like it. The Holdo maneuver. First of all, let's just start there. How could someone like that? How could someone like the fact that, oh, now ships can go, into light speed and just tear through other ships? Why has nobody ever done that before? The Rose-Tico relationship with Finn. Now, this is another kind of like Jake Lloyd and young Anakin. This is another actor that got a lot of hate for the role, and nothing against the actress, right? Of course. Just the character. Rose-Tico is horrible. She's a horrible character. Awful. All she's doing is spitting out the worst dialogue ever. And I'd like to make one thing clear. I don't dislike this movie for like stupid reasons. Some people are like, oh, this is a woke movie or something. No. I hate this movie because it's written horribly. Genuinely. My least favorite moment in all of Star Wars, okay? Out of anything, even over somehow Palpatine returns, like something that pisses me off the most out of this entire franchise is at the end of The Last Jedi, when Finn is going to make this heroic sacrifice after they've lost like 90% of the entire army, and Rose comes out of nowhere, slams into his ship, ruins his sacrifice, gives him this awkward kiss. Then the First Order kind of just wins because they like shoot the laser beam, it breaks into the base or whatever. Then Luke Skywalker shows up to kind of bail them out. And it's just so unbelievably ridiculous to me that that's even something that they'd even consider. Because I think Finn kind of sucks in this movie. All of a sudden, he's just moaning about Rey. And it gets even worse in Rise of Skywalker. Poe, his character has been destroyed because I don't understand why on the ship. Yes, I understand that he was like kind of this gung-ho, like I want to just be a manly man and like go after stuff. I don't understand why they didn't just tell him what the plan was with Holdo, with Leia, with the whole group. I understand that he's kind of like aggressive in terms of like he wants to be the decision maker, but I think he would have been okay with the plan if you just told him, guys, this movie's so bad, and I've only talked about half of the parallel here, because on the other side of that, we've got the Luke Skywalker stuff. I really don't like the Luke Skywalker stuff, because I already said I think his character is like okay. I feel like this movie, all it does every 2 seconds is it tries to prove that it's smarter than you. Because every 5 minutes in this goddamn movie, they subvert your expectations. They do something unexpected. Oh, hey, guess what? Luke Skywalker gets handed the lightsaber, and then he throws it over his shoulder because he didn't expect that. Oh, Finn's going to make his sacrifice? Well, guess what? Subverted your expectations because now we saved him. Oh, guess what? Well, I'm trying to think of another thing. You could even just say the Holdo maneuver. Oh, we think that, the plan, this is like a really bad plan. Well, no, there was actually a secret plan. There's constantly, time and time again, subverting your expectations. It's like Rian Johnson was on his high horse trying to act like you're the dumbest person alive because you weren't expecting that, were you? Oh, I got you. This movie's so bad. Now, the pros of this movie. I like some of the stuff where Kylo Ren and Rey are like connected through the Force a little bit. And the fact that like Snoke was kind of behind the scenes pulling the strings there, but Snoke kind of just sucks. Again, I think the throne room fight kind of sucks because I know there's been a common complaint, but sometimes these guards are just kind of standing there waiting for something to happen. They're just waiting to get killed. One thing I'll say about this movie though, in terms of positives, visually stunning. 0 complaints, visually stunning film. The music, oh my god, some of the greatest music ever, practically. But this movie's god-awful. I don't like the final battle with Force Ghost Luke Skywalker. It's so stupid. All of a sudden, he's like this smug, washed-up guy. And you can do these like washed-up old guy stories in a good way. Kind of like how Kingdom of the Crystal Skull did it. I think that Dial of Destiny didn't do it well, but Kingdom of the Crystal Skull acknowledged that Indiana Jones was a bit older, but they didn't just like dog him for it. They kind of just went into what it's like to be older. This movie just makes it like he's some washed up bum. Rey is very boring now. Again, all the characters just suck. The little side mission to Canto Bight, I really like that planet, but all of a sudden it turns into like an Eat the Rich story, like theme. And I'm not saying I don't support that theme or that like concept as a whole, but where is this coming from? And when you really boil it down to what's going on in this movie, on one side of things, we're just in this slow-ass ship getting chased by the Empire. Nothing's really happening. And on the other half of things, we're watching Rey and Luke argue for like 2 hours. It's just two very boring parallel storylines. And one thing I'll always say, this film, if I could like redo The Last Jedi, right, what would I do? I think this movie, even just conceptually, is bad. Like, I think this entire idea just needs to be completely scrapped. Like, you just need to do something just completely different. Because I think it's a bad idea, a bad concept, a bad script that was also executed on poorly. So there's like this multiplication effect. It's like exponentially worse because of that. I hate this movie. Like, honestly, I truly hate this movie. Is it the worst Star Wars movie? We'll see. Maybe I'll kind of speed through these last two here a little bit. But Solo. I think Solo's a good Star Wars movie. This is also going to give me some hate. Like, I'm so sorry. I'm putting Solo right there. I know. This movie's fun to me. I really like Aldrin as Han Solo. I think that it's... One thing I will say is that this is like Solo, a Star Wars story. That's the title of this movie. And I feel like that kind of fits it well because it's like, yeah, this is just a Star Wars story. It kind of feels like a story that somebody else is telling you, like through the grapevine. There are so many fun sequences in here. We get to see the Kessel Run that's mentioned. I love Donald Glover, Childish Gambino as Lando. I think that Emilia Clarke as Kira is kind of like this moderately interesting, like kind of love interest, kind of turned bad. We've got Woody Harrelson in here as like kind of another side character who I think is okay. Doesn't do too much for me. Visually, it's an okay movie. I actually really like the dynamic too with Chewbacca. And one other thing I need to add, kind of like The Force Awakens, this movie is very funny. The first scene where we see Han talking to Chewbacca, where he's like trying to do the voice or whatever, he's like, "Rrr," so funny to me. I think that Aldrin just kind of like carries this energy to him, and you could picture him as like a young Han. Again, we get to see like a lot of iconic things in here. We also get to see a lot of new stuff that I find very interesting. The visuals, again, all the CGI is just so beautiful. I think it's paced pretty well. The only thing is that I don't love Paul Bettany's character. I forgot what his name is. It's like Dyer something, Ross. I forgot what his name is, but you know, he's an okay villain. And I do like that they kind of set up stakes early here where with the crew between Woody Harrelson's character and Han, like people die, like people legitimately die. So it's like, whoa, okay, we could, people could drop like flies in this movie. Set some stakes early on. The Kessel Run might be my favorite scene. Like this fun heist. It's just so tense. Like I feel like the stakes are pretty high because you're kind of like worrying about Han, even though you know he probably survives. But since you don't know the other characters, it kind of makes it like, oh God, like are these people going to make it? Are they not? And yeah, I just find it pretty interesting. It's not the greatest movie in the world. Like I think that the Phoebe Waller-Bridges robot L3, I could see a world where she was more annoying. I think she's a little annoying, but I do kind of like her because I like her dynamic with Lando. And again, Lando is so fun in this movie, like genuinely. Very funny. I like some of the scenes. Another negative for me is that I feel like it really loses steam in like the final 15 minutes once we get to that beach. But it's not like a bad ending, like it puts a bad taste in my mouth, but it kind of just makes me realize like, okay, maybe this isn't like the greatest Star Wars movie ever, but I still really enjoy it. Next up's going to be Rise of Skywalker. I mean, this is the worst Star Wars movie, okay? Let's just rip it off. Like, I think The Last Jedi bothers me more, but Rise of Skywalker, it's almost like I just don't even care because we already derailed everybody with The Last Jedi, so who cares about Rise of Skywalker? One thing I will say about Rise of Skywalker is that, first of all, let me just get the staples out of the way, okay? The visuals are incredible. The music is really great. The production value, the CGI, everything feels really epic and grand. Like, they did a great job. Like, they spared no expense in terms of that. Those are my only positives. outside of a couple of jokes that land, but that's natural. It's still a Star Wars movie. But this is like one of the worst scripts I've ever seen. There's the worst kiss I think I've ever seen in a movie at the end between Rey and Kylo Ren, because it came out of nowhere. There's no romantic tension between this entire trilogy. They just kind of kiss for no reason. Rey Skywalker at the end. Like, at that point, I'm just so not invested in the film that I honestly don't, like, even care about the Rey Skywalker thing as much as other people. Like, yeah, it's cute, I guess, sure. But, like, I could see why it pisses people off more. Especially because, again, I'm just a bit lower on, like, Luke Skywalker. But, like, it's also very stupid. Also, the fact that, talking about Rey a little bit more, we've just completely derailed the idea that she's from nowhere. I think that was always, like, the most interesting concept with her character. That's why I love The Force Awakens, because she's just this random girl that's just Force sensitive, and the fact that she isn't from anywhere makes her so interesting. Luke Skywalker, the greatest reveal in cinematic history, is that he's the son of Darth Vader, a very powerful Sith. Palpatine returned, obviously very dumb. Poe is just kind of Poe in here. Finn is somehow even worse. At this point, I'm just so out of steam. By the way, one thing I forgot to mention, Leia's horrific Superman mode force pull in space. I'm sorry, that was just one thing I had to mention from The Last Jedi that also pisses me off. But going back here, Leia, I guess, you know, she's it. Like, I'm so done, man. I'm just so done with this movie because they start healing each other back and forth. There's the little knife that they use conveniently to line up with the ship in the water. Like, I have nothing else to really say. It's just so dumb. Again, yes, there's some really gorgeous costumes in here. Some great spectacle action, you could say. But there's just no love in this. They were clearly so lost. Hux is the spy. I think that's in this. Yeah, that's in Rise of Skywalker. So dumb. Like, maybe if they set that up a little bit better, it could have been cooler. But he just watched the Republic get destroyed and did nothing about it. So he's not much of a spy, honestly. And yeah, the fact that Snoke is a clone, like, all the things that I'm saying have been said on and on and on, so I don't even really want to, like, spend a lot of time harping on this, but Rise of Skywalker, like, one of the worst movies I've ever seen. But again, like, it doesn't really piss me off as much as Last Jedi, because something about Last Jedi is so, like, smug to me, and it, like, bothers me. But Rise of Skywalker, I will acknowledge, like, yeah, it's worse, even though I think they're close. And next we've got Mandalorian and Grogu. Mandalorian Grogu is going to be going in pretty bad, right above Phantom Menace. Now, I will say one thing. Out of both of these movies, the best moment is easily the Duel of the Fates battle at the end of Phantom Menace. The problem is, there's 2 hours surrounding that fight, and they're pretty boring. Mandalorian and Grogu, this is the first Star Wars movie out of any of them, and I know that I've been, to an annoying extent, harping on production value. This is the first movie where I think the CGI looks kind of off. The sets look kind of ugly, honestly. The music is really good. Ludwig's score is incredible. But this movie just feels kind of pointless. I just put up my review the other day. You guys can kind of see, like, my more in-depth thoughts. But I think that this film is just really not all that good. It feels like it was just kind of forced out. Jabba, or what's his face? The Hutt, Rada the Hutt, is thrown in here with a weird English voice, I guess, or American accent. I just feel like this is one of these films where I'm like, what's the point? Because there's no emotional arcs, there's no emotional core. I think the Mandalorian as a character in this movie is just boring. I think Grogu is kind of fun at times. I like the little Babu Fricks. Like, you guys got me there. You got me. I like the Babu Fricks. But, again, it's a pointless movie. Sigourney Weaver's character does absolutely nothing. There's barely even, like, any dialogue in this movie, and all the dialogue that we do gets pretty rough. Now, there's, like, fun to be had with this film. Like, I would rather watch The Mandalorian and Grogu than Episode 1 because it's just more watchable. Like, I could just maybe turn my brain off and just kind of enjoy some of the mindless mid-action. But with that being said, it's still not a really great film. I don't really want to talk about it too much because, again, I just put out my reviews. If you want to see, like, 30 minutes of me ranting about this movie, you can go watch it there. But this is going to close out my Star Wars ranking. Now, again, I know it's very controversial. I just talked for like an hour straight practically, but let me know your thoughts down below about my list. Give me your own thoughts about, your list or whatever. But thank you guys so much for watching this video. and I will see you in the next video.